Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to say, like to be a good playoff player, this is this would be kind of for everything, but it'd be first the mental side, I would say. Um, and I would say like obviously embrace the challenge. Like that's you want to be ready for it. And this is like actually I just thought about this one. It's like if you get into a series and then you start looking at okay we're playing these guys, and maybe you played them 4 times and you didn't really look at their who you're playing. You know, you played the couple games and you
Yep.
all of a sudden you're looking at the roster or you're doing video and the coach is pointing out that Eric likes to come across the ice and take your head off. Like he's if you notice in the clips guys, it's over and over. You say when we're coming down the ice, be aware of that. You'll notice this guy here after whistles, he likes to give a little bit. That's going to be ramped up. So then all of a sudden your awareness gets heightened all over the place, and this is before it even starts, right? And or you have a game, and maybe you even look at clips and like these guys are really good, and it's getting in your head already, right? So the first thing is embrace it, but then stay in the moment, and it's very very difficult to do, right? So that's why like during the season and everything that you do, actually everything that you do, if you can work on that skill of staying in the moment, you're going to notice that like it's an exercise, right? It's just like working out. If you understand that when you have when you're thinking too far ahead in the future, like so like there's good and bad to that, right? You can see yourself winning the cup or winning the tournament, which is good. That's a good thing to see, but you also want to be able to like, you also don't want to start thinking wow these guys are really good and getting in your head that way. So okay you could do it negatively. So the most important thing is to do some preparation but stay in the moment. And what does staying in the moment mean? It's like do what you can do when you can do it, like control your controllables. Like you can't have any outcomes that are out of your control like even an hour away,
Mhm.
right? And what happened in the past is you can wipe that slate clean and start new. So that's the one thing I would say. And then the other thing is like so stay in the moment and focus on the task at hand every shift. And when the shift is over, erase it. Congratulate yourself if you had a good one and build off of that. But if it's not the best or it didn't go your way right away, it's just wipe it clean and get focused,
Yep.
right? Get it back. And then the other thing is like going into the playoffs is just the crowd, the hype, the music, the talk, the haircuts, all that kind of stuff. They can be just distractions, and like it's all good stuff, but just make sure that they don't become distractions. So like embrace it, think it's cool, you get some energy off it, but again, don't get so distracted by that stuff. And that's that point again of staying in the moment, right?
Yeah. I think I got two on that. Just on your first one, how like the energy gets like super super heightened.
Yeah.
I think one thing that I was just listening to a Huberman Lab podcast today, and they were talking about breathing, like breathing exercises.
Yeah. One of the best things you can do.
And I think it's really important to try to keep yourself calm. And I go back to that we've talked about imagery before on the podcast, where you can just like close your eyes and just try to relax, man, because that energy is gonna stay there. You're gonna have it, but you hear people say all the time like, oh, he's gripping the stick too tight, or he just can't.
Dude, you do see it.
Yeah, you see it, right?
Yeah.
You definitely see it. And I think so. Just one protocol that he was talking about, it's like a double inhale. I don't know if you've heard of him talk about this before. So you inhale as far as you can in, and then you take a little baby extra on, right? And then you exhale nice and slow. And if you do that, just like close your eyes and visualize your game while you're doing that, and it'll help calm you down. It'll get you out of that little bit of a stress state. And you can do that on the bench. You can do it between shifts. You can do it whenever, and it just helps to kind of settle you. Because I remember the emotions are just running rampant, man, and it's hard. You get on the ice, and like all of a sudden it's like you took a double dose of caffeine, and you're just jittery, and you can't calm yourself down. And that's the way you can actually do it, because you start thinking about everything, right? And then your mind gets buzzing like that, and it's not necessarily the best for your performance. And some people, they love it and they can thrive on it, but other people, if you need to stay calm, stay calm. The other thing, I think the most important thing to being good in the playoffs too is you just have to be willing to play hard, man. Like you just have to be willing to like be hard on pucks, be hard on the play. And that doesn't mean you all of a sudden turn into a checker if you're not a checker. It's just whatever you do, just doing it hard and doing it harder than you normally do it, So if you're a passer, making sure your passes are crisp and right on, if you're hard on your stick, being hard on your stick, hard on your face-offs. If you are a guy that finish checks, you finish your checks hard, get to the net hard. It's like all the things, just do it hard. And I think that's the biggest gear change when you get up into playoffs, is like everything is a little harder. And if you don't also go up and you're not playing a little bit harder, then you're one of those guys we talk about that can't figure it out in the playoffs. It's like you have to be able to turn it up a little bit harder in the playoffs, and that's probably the biggest thing I remember when you play in those games. It's like everything just has to be hard, man. You have
Yeah.
to be willing to do it.
Hmm. Yeah. So like what you said about the pre-scouting and stuff, that was my next point. Is like, so like we're talking about a player that's going in the playoffs, and maybe you're a top guy or you're not. Doesn't really matter what's going to happen, and mostly because it's elimination games, you're going to have mostly your best players, or supposed to be your best players on the ice, or guys that can make a big difference in the game. So what happens, as you said earlier, there's a lot more pre-scouting. So like if you're a coach that didn't put time into really knowing every guy in that other team, especially at higher levels, that's who we're really talking about. But at the certain levels, like the coaches get prepared like crazy. So there's video, and then there's like a change of maybe the way you guys even play, or the way you're going to defend, or breakouts, whatever, right? Maybe you're going to start getting chippier, or you're going to be less chippy because you're emotional, whatever. Anyways, there's a pre-scout, and then there's a game plan, right? So part of that game plan, as for you as a player, so let's just say you're an offensive player, and that's the people that are mostly on the ice, right? Your best players are on the ice, and you're typically the best players are putting up some points. Well, all of a sudden, going into a series, you just have to know that it's going to be a tighter checking series because they've pre-scouted. Like if you're a 100-point guy, I know that I can't let you touch the puck, and if you do touch the puck, there's going to be some lumber on you. I'm going to be in your face. I'm going to be physical on you. I have to wear you down, right? So if you know that going in, that's a really good thing to know, right? Um, so what happens now to be a good playoff player now? How if you're getting checked really tight, you're not getting the offensive chances. How do you become a productive player, right? Because you're maybe instead of getting 4 or 5 offensive, maybe assists or goals, maybe it's down to 2 or 3. So to be an effective player, you have to make sure that you flip the script too, and you have to be equally as good offensively or defensively as you were offensively. So what happens a lot of times when you watch a playoff game, you'll say, "Well, where is this guy? He disappeared." It's like because it's so tight checking, you don't have room, and you're on the ice a lot, and guys are wearing you out, man. So if you're floating around, and that's why you'll see a lot of guys they disappear, and it's like, well, because they don't have that opportunity now to take chances and just take off and play the offensive game. And there's teams that have played that way that now it's not going to work because there's no room. So you have to make sure that you do your job from the defensive side. And it goes back to all those habits that we've talked about before. Now that guy that gets the puck off of the wall, right, of the winger that is not fancy, gets that puck off the wall and out, that's a really effective play now. Now that's a guy that you need in, that you got to count on that guy. It's a centerman coming low. It's the back checks coming back to the house and sorting things out. It's the deep finishing checks. It's all those little things that are going to make a big difference because after a period of time, the guys that do it well, right, your top players that learn how to play that playoff type hockey, that now all of a sudden over a series, it starts to emerge, right? Now your chances seem to come a little bit later on. Right, but as to your point, it's so much more intense that you can't cheat the game now. You might once in a while, but you have to play the other side of the puck. So knowing that, so let me just finish this part. So knowing that if you're one of the better players, don't get frustrated necessarily that you're not getting the opportunities. You have to tighten up at the other side and know that you're going to get checked. Like it's just part of the deal, right? And then if you're not one of those big offensive guys, well, obviously you can probably understand where this goes. You're making you're actually critical the physical side of it, the tight checking stuff, and then that's where you see guys that didn't have huge numbers during the year. All of a sudden, in the playoffs, they've got some goals, or they got some serious points, and they're making impacts because they do little things that make a huge difference.
Yeah, the way I said it to you yesterday, not to make it like more dramatic than it needs to be, but the holes in your game will be exposed during playoffs because you can't get away with the things that you were getting away with during the regular season. So that's why if we go back to our little mini series we did there about like foundations for each of the positions, like if your foundational skills are not tight, then it's going to show because you don't have the extra space, you don't have the extra move, and you're not going to get the maybe you will, but for the most part, you're not going to be scoring maybe at the same rate you were scoring before. So maybe it was worth having you out there for the goals, but now you're not getting the goals. So if you can't do that other stuff because your foundational skills aren't tight, or your ability to see the ice and play the game the right way for your position is not dialed in, now you're just less useful and you'll be more and more frustrated. So that's a really important thing to know as a player. Those foundational skills have to be dialed in, and that's why during the year, during your off season, whatever, focus on tightening that stuff up and actually thinking the game properly, so that when it gets harder, you can fall back on the foundation and you're still a contributor to the team.
Yeah.
You know?
Fall back to your training.
Yeah, exactly. You fall
Yeah.
back to your training.
Yeah, and the other thing with the guys is that you'll see the guys that, like, we talk about, we did an episode on being tough at one point, right? And toughness could mean fighting, but toughness just simply means that you're in the battle, right? So guys that like to maybe poke check or try to take the easy way to skate around guys, it's like, it doesn't work now.
Exposed, man.
Like,
Yeah.
you have to be tough. You do have to get to that net. Like, you're gonna have to go there. You might get tripped along the way or shoved from behind and go into the goalpost. And like, this is hockey. Playoff hockey is ugly. Like, it's beautiful though, but like, you can't hide. And you'll see the guys that are on the softer side disappear. So there's two sides to it though, right? You'll see some guys disappear, one because they are softer, or because they're checked so tight that it's the opportunity right there. But a lot of the times it's just, that's what I'm talking about, a playoff hockey player, is that you have that grit. Like, are you willing to pay the price? And some guys just aren't. They just aren't.
Yep, for sure.
They're softer.
Yeah.
And they disappear in playoffs. Period.